Hey, it's Jordan with TYT and TYT Politics. It is Wednesday, August 31st. I'm here in New York and I will be traveling coming up, I believe, Friday. I'm going to be going to Ohio to cover a rally with Jill Stein. Then Saturday, I'm going to be going to Detroit to cover Jill Stein over there. She'll be doing some stuff in Michigan. I believe I'm going to be going myself down to Flint after that to do some follow-up reporting. I haven't been there yet, so I'm hoping that I could talk to citizens affected, local politicians. So if you're a viewer who is from the area, please reach out to me on Facebook. I'd love to speak with you and try to arrange interviews. So today, obviously, the big story, it's a tough day for the progressive movement. Tim Canova, who is the Florida professor challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz, lost the primary to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. He lost, the final was 56.8% to 43.2%. So lost by 13 points. There's a lot of thoughts I have on it, but first let me just give you some of the fresh reporting that I've gotten. So a big issue was, why hasn't Bernie Sanders reached out or helped with fundraising emails in the final stretch? Bernie was kind of dark for probably 3 or 4 weeks before the primary yesterday. I have confirmed that Bernie Sanders did not get back to Tim Canova before the primary. Tim Canova, in an interview with me, had said, "I'm waiting for Bernie's call."
Look, when Bernie endorsed me, he called me up, gave me his number and said, stay in touch and please call. And I have, and I'm waiting for Bernie to return my call, and not just Bernie, a couple of people very high up in his camp.
Bernie did not call him before to, explain why he's not helping, give him some encouragement. And I spoke with my source about 2 hours ago, so 2 hours before shooting this, and Bernie has not reached out to Tim following his loss. So I'm reporting that to then give you my take. There's going to be a lot of people upset at Bernie. There's going to be a lot of people who say Bernie would have made the difference. I'm not going to tell you whether to be upset at Bernie Sanders or not. Frankly, I think that it's very likely he made a deal for future considerations for himself, not to campaign down in Florida to help Canova and to kind of not do much towards the end. But I don't think even if Bernie Sanders would have done that, it would have made the difference. I do know that Canova pretty much ran out of money towards the end. He was a fundraising powerhouse for much of the campaign, but even the fundraising he did, which was about $3 million, he was getting killed by Debbie Wasserman Schultz super PACs all over the place, TV, direct mail. So towards the end, he needed that last jolt from a Bernie Sanders fundraising email. Bernie has been sending out emails fundraising for various progressive candidates, and Bernie, there's no other way of saying it, left him high and dry. So I do know from high up sources that Canova's campaign was pretty empty towards the end on money, and they were getting assaulted on TV by various super PACs supporting Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Also, Debbie Wasserman Schultz had a gauntlet of establishment politicians come down and try to save her ass. Yeah, Biden, Vice President Biden come down, John Lewis, Nancy Pelosi, and of course President Obama had endorsed her. Didn't come down. So I don't think Bernie Sanders. You could be upset at him or not. I don't think he would have made the difference, and I'll tell you why. I think Canova was a strong candidate, but when you look at a 13-point loss, and I haven't seen any exit polls, so I can't tell you what the age breakdown was or anything like that. But this district was heavily senior citizens, and there were also it's a very big Jewish community as well. So Tim Canova really needed to get out Latinos, African Americans, young people, and the last election in that district, only 11% turned out, and stories that I'm reading say there was low turnout. So at the end of the day, it was a very tough district to topple someone like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who has been in office there and representing that area for over a decade. As my reporting showed while I was down there, they know her, they trust her. I'm not saying whether that's right or not, because you know my thoughts on Debbie Wasserman Schultz. But when you have by and large, older Americans living in a district, a community, who WikiLeaks, the corruption that went on with the national primary, doesn't really register with them as much as, oh, we know Debbie. We know Debbie. Also, most senior citizens aren't buried in $150,000 to $200,000 in student loan debt. So overall, they have different priorities than the young people who were supporting Tim Canova. I interviewed several of his volunteers who were all, in their 20s, basically. So, and he had older volunteers as well. So I'm not making excuses for Tim Canova, but when you see a 13-point loss, that indicates to me that, he would have needed Bernie Sanders down there, fundraising emails, but also just to start he needed to pick off a good portion of that senior vote. And that's just very difficult to do in politics. Bernie Sanders can attest to that during the Democratic primary. Again, I've put the disclaimer that I don't think all seniors are status quo voters or all seniors vote on party lines. But at the end of the day, the data is the data. In the Democratic primary, Hillary Clinton won based on over 45 years old people voting for her. African Americans, whites, Latinos, generally speaking, older people, the majority voted for Hillary Clinton. It's the same thing on the local level because people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz are able to convince the older people through, having ice cream socials with them where they get together and have ice cream and she listens to their concerns, having constituent meetings every now and then through, when you're a congresswoman in a district for over 10 years, you get to know people and, they think you're out for them. Also, older people tend to watch mainstream media predominantly instead of getting their news from their phones, places like the Young Turks. There's a reason all these digital outlets are going heavy in investing in mobile technology and obviously their websites because their bread and butter is with younger people more than older people. Older people still, by and large, not all older people, because obviously there's plenty of you watching me, get their news from the mainstream media. Well, you think the mainstream media was going in depth about Debbie Wasserman Schultz corruption? You think CNN was? No. They focused on the DNC leaks. They didn't really focus that much on what was inside of them because they played into this bullshit propaganda about the Russians to deflect. So at the end of the day, I think Tim Canova was a strong candidate. Frankly, I think he would have had a better chance winning if he ran for Senate than Florida's 23rd district. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, right or wrong, is a trusted person in that district, and she leaned heavily on the senior voters and Jewish voters. And whether we like it or not, that's what happened. I've seen the comments about there was voter fraud and election suppression and all these things. We can't make excuses every time we lose. You're not going to like that, but from what I've heard from sources close to the campaign, there were things here or there, but there wasn't massive fraud that happened the day of the election. So, we can't every time a candidate you want to win cry fraud. It's just, unless there's proof, which, trust me, I keep my ear to the ground. I talk to people all the time. I don't see any proof that she won by 13 points because machines were rigged or anything like that. So I think here's the deal. Bernie did leave him hanging. Bernie did pretty much leave him helpless in terms of finance at the end. But at the end of the day, this is politics. Districts are gerrymandered. So a lot of these districts, the lines are drawn to help certain parties, but also some areas predominantly are older or Jewish or African American or whatever. So it would have been tough for a candidate like Tim Canova to beat her. And I also think at the end of the day, you guys who watch me are very, very in the know about Biden and Obama and Nancy Pelosi and how these people are not on your side. But most older people have a lot support President Obama, Vice President Biden, Nancy Pelosi. So when you have these people, John Lewis, when you have these people down there vouching for Debbie Wasserman Schultz, you see TV ads, radio ads by the president or the vice president for Debbie Wasserman Schultz, that helps, that goes a long way. The whole country has not been awoken yet to the Democratic Party's corruption. So I think the legacy of Tim Canova, he showed, listen, he lost by 13 points. He didn't lose by 25 points, okay? He raised $3 million, not taking a cent from super PACs. And you know what? It was a competitive campaign. Was it close at the end? No. I mean, this 13 points, I would say, is pretty much a blowout. But a few changes here, Bernie Sanders supporting him, it could have been a lot closer. So for the people that are discouraged, I understand it, especially the people that volunteered and gave money and all these things. But you have to take stock in, it's not like he lost to her in, Portland, which is a liberal utopia. He lost to her in a very heavily Democratic district with older voters and Jewish voters. And don't forget, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the first Jewish congresswoman from Florida. Ever. So at the end of the day, those things matter. Age matters, religion matters, your income matters. A lot of these senior citizens, not all of them, but Miami-Dade area is not a cheap place to live. So a lot of these people, frankly, are not suffering the way a lot of viewers are, or a lot of young people are. So that's something to keep in mind. Turning to Alan Grayson, let's be real. Alan Grayson got crushed. I'm going to give you the numbers right now. He lost 59 to 18%. So that is an ass kicking. I'm not going to make excuses. I think at the end of the day, we should point out Grayson at one point had a small lead in the polls not too long ago, maybe a month or two ago. Alan Grayson, this was a good old-fashioned case of dirty politics 101. He was smeared to the high heavens by Patrick Murphy, by Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Vice President Biden. You had Patrick Murphy saying, "I'm not going to debate this guy. I won't stand on stage with someone with allegations of assaulting his wife against him." In America, you are innocent till proven guilty. Apparently, those lawmakers don't believe in that when it's not convenient for them. Alan Grayson has never been charged with a crime. His ex-wife was actually proved to be lying in one of the instances where she cried assault. But TV ads, radio ads, direct mail, all these things smeared him to the high heavens. Would he have won otherwise? I don't know, but it would have been a lot closer. He was, at one point, close in the polls. And obviously, he lost by a very big amount. So I think, listen, if you have President Obama, who again is very popular in the area, he did radio ads for Patrick Murphy. Vice President Biden went down there. A Harry Reid's super PAC, the Senate Majority PAC, literally sent $1 million down there to that race. Which later on, it was learned that $1 million came from the back door. Patrick Murphy's father, who was a big shot in real estate, actually gave his son $1 million. So the bottom line is, Grayson was smeared. Patrick Murphy was portrayed as this American hero. He's a veteran. He's good looking. And he was painted as a great, strong Democrat, while Grayson is a menace. And that's powerful stuff. There's a reason negative campaigning works. It's a shame because Grayson has given up his congressional seat when he ran for Senate. I think he's a very strong progressive. A lot of Democrats don't like him. A lot of people think he's kind of a prickly guy, sometimes a jerk. Hey, I'd rather a jerk who stands for the progressive values than a corporate shill who pretends to be, Mother Teresa. So it's a shame. But at the end of the day, I think Grayson, it would have been a lot closer. But I think the smearing, painting him as, this menace who assaults his wife and all these things, it did him in. It's very tough to recover from that. This was another race that Bernie Sanders did not offer any support with fundraising or campaigning himself. So that's the deal. I think, listen, I'm not going to tell you not to be discouraged, not to be upset, not to feel like, no matter what we do, the establishment's always going to win. But I am going to tell you, that's what they want. They want you to think that, and they want you to take that to heart, and they want you to fall in line and go support Hillary Clinton and Democratic candidates. That's what they want. They were hoping that when Bernie was out, and if some of his Bernie-crats were defeated, young people and volunteers and all these new progressive people that have been awoken, maybe we're always progressive, but finally awoken, particularly young people, would just kind of take their bowl and go home, in their view. So if you want to give them what they want, then do that. But I'm telling you, if you stay active, not just when there's an election and trying to elect people like Canova or Grayson, but after the fact, you protest at Debbie Wasserman Schultz's office. You stay active on social media when she votes for something that's bad. Same thing with Patrick Murphy. That's how we create change. That's how we put a spotlight on these corrupt lawmakers. That's how you eventually get a candidate with the right infrastructure, with the right fundraising, with the right message to win. He lost by 13 points. That's not a lot. That's not a small amount, but it's certainly not 20 points. Okay, a few things here or there, he could have won. I think Grayson was going to lose either way. It was a smear job from the beginning, and he got no support from Bernie Sanders or anywhere else. But I would not look at these results and think to yourself, oh, no matter what we do, we're never going to win. That's not the case. And you know what? To me, I'm a journalist first. So if I uncover bad things about progressives, negative things, I'm not going to hold that back. Obviously, you know who I support, what causes I support. But as a journalist, to me, I'm not going to stop fighting to spotlight corrupt people, whether they win re-election or not. So why would you stop supporting the other option? Don't be discouraged just because we haven't toppled the establishment in one cycle. It takes a long time to defeat gigantic political machines like the Clintons. It takes a long time to defeat gigantic political machines in local areas like Debbie Wasserman Schultz. It takes the right candidate. It takes the right message. It takes a few lucky breaks. We're making movement, and there's going to be progressive candidates that win. So don't be discouraged and stop fighting. Thank you for watching, and I will see you when I'm in Ohio and Michigan. Thanks.